everyone. Thank you for joining us today's our seminar and webinar, Values, Ownership, and Authority from Photography to Digital Art. I'm Gillian Howard. I'm the moderator today. I'm the CEO and Fair Director of Digital Art Fair. And today I'm really glad to invite 4 of the Hong Kong local photographers to join us here today on this topic. First of all, I would like to give a little bit more background of all the speakers and myself. I founded Digital Art Fair about 1 year ago. The idea started from 2 years ago when I was in London managing another gallery in Mayfair. My background, actually, this topic speaks to my heart because I used to run Blue Lotus Gallery in Hong Kong, and I worked with Michael Wolf and Ho Fan Estate quite closely. And photography is always really close to my heart because in my practice and my passion has always been photography. So today we're going to dive in quite deep into what is photography, what's the definition of photography in our time, and what does that mean to photographer to dive into NFT and digital art space. So let me introduce 4 of our speakers. Blair Sugarman is from Hong Kong. And then we have Joyce. Joyce is also a Hong Kong photographer. And then we have British photographer Darren Wong, who is also working with Digital Art Fair and curating our pioneer session. And then we have Foley, who is very well known for his cyberpunk genre of his photography. Yeah. So I will let each of them to introduce themselves. Blair, would you?
Sure, happy to. So thank you for having me, first of all. I got into photography a few years ago for, I think, all the wrong reasons, which was wanting to take travel photography and trying to document some pictures. So this was basically when I was going on a year abroad, and I bought a nice camera, and I got back after my year of traveling and discovered that all of my photos were they were basically unusable. So after actually putting some time aside to learn how to use a camera properly, I moved back to Hong Kong and I started experimenting with the photography that's available here. So are we showing the slides?
Would you like to?
I'm happy to talk through some slides in terms of the photography that I do now. So having been in photography for a couple of years and meeting with other photographers, I think we all realize the challenge of shooting in quite a small, condensed space where there's a lot of photographers also doing a lot of similar things. And we have been encouraged, especially in the past year or two, to try and push things a bit further. So up on screen, this is an architecture piece that I shot by a guy called Gary Coxedge, who does wooden sculptures. And the idea was to use a drone to do some light painting and paint a ring of light around this structure, which is called Time Loop. So the idea was that the ring is essentially timeless. It's like infinity. So you have the time loop with this loop of light over it, which is done by drone. So I'm an aerial photographer, a street photographer, and an architectural photographer. Those are the things that I enjoy doing. I've tried portrait before, but it didn't look so good. So I stick to architecture and street. This is a shot of the ICC during a particularly cloudy morning, one of my favorite shots. You see a single photo here, but this was probably about 3 weeks of waking up at
5,000 image.
4 a.m. to try and get an image like this. So it definitely paid off. But this is what I enjoy doing, because when you look at the actual photo that you got and you have the iconic moment of standing there and witnessing it, you know, it brings back the memories of something that isn't occurring every day. Next shot, I can talk through. We can. It's all right, no worries. So I would brand myself now as an experimental photographer. So I try different things. If there's a day that I feel like doing street photography, I go and see what I can capture and what I can do differently. If there's a day that I want to do some architecture stuff or experiment, then I do that. So one of the most recent things that I tried that garnered quite a lot of attention was turning Jardine House into Tetris, which was taking the windows and the lights of the offices of these windows and essentially making them the building blocks of the game, which we made available online to play as an actual game of Tetris. So that's also an NFT that we experimented with. So that's basically what I enjoy doing. Anything new that I can do in Hong Kong and anything new that I can try once the borders are open, I'm gonna keep pushing things forward.
Oh, this is the drone photography.
This is
you did, yeah.
Yeah, this is light painting.
Who was flying the drone?
So my colleague John, JSR Pixel, who's not here at the moment, he's an architect. So he has I think probably one of the best skill sets in terms of being a drone pilot in Hong Kong. So he's flying the drone to make the lines, doing it line by line. We went back a couple of nights to try and get a quiet night, and we were successful with these ones. So yeah, we enjoyed doing it.
How many times do you need to fly the drone? Is it just?
I think we must have done it about 20 times for each photo, and then we took the best lines for each and combined them to get the final result.
I can't believe you got the circle.
The circle that was using a program which worked out well.
That's amazing.
And then I think the final shot is probably Tetris that I spoke about earlier.
The Tetris is the one with the Jardine house with the video game. Okay, we've got the music.
We've got the music. It's all right. It should load.
It will. There we go.
So please don't. Please don't look at my Tetris skills. It was after quite a long time of setting it up, so I was pretty tired when I was experimenting with Tetris. Everyone that's looked at this has thought I can do better. So you feel free to try. I'm happy to give you the link. It's a lot of fun.
Is it on your website?
It's on the website, yeah.
So I think this work, this is the last work you're going to share, but I think this work really speaks quite a lot for digital art fair and photography, how photography moved into digital art scene, because it originally started with a photo.
Yeah.
And then Blair, you went in, I guess, program.
Python programming behind
programmed
it.
it, and I don't know, is it come with a gaming console or whatever now?
It does. It's done through computer at the moment, so the code is on JavaScript online, so you can play through it. But the actual NFT itself is just the video of me playing, like the first video that we generated. So yeah, it's quite unique. It's also unique in terms of people looking at it and still going, I could do better than that guy. But it's a good memory. Yeah.
It's a really interesting piece because we got a lot of comments on Instagram and saying that I can do better than this.
Yes, it went viral on LinkedIn because architects were all forwarding it as well. So yeah.
Awesome, great, good to hear. Thank you for sharing, Blair. And then next we have Joyce. Joyce, you can share a little bit more about yourself and what kind of photography that you do.
Sure. I'm Joyce Young. How are you? Thanks for having me, first of all. I'm a photographer. I'm specializing in portrait and lifestyle. So I do portraiture.
That's good.
We can complement each other's photography. And I've been doing full-time photography for 10, 12 years. And I started with all kinds of photography, including product, food, events, wedding, etc. And so now I'm specialized, and I realized along the journey that I really like interaction with people and kind of capturing that moment when it happens or when they're not noticing that it's happening. So therefore specializing in portraiture and lifestyle. And it is my second career. I switched from being a risk manager in a credit card company. And so I did that for quite a few years, and I've always been, I guess, analytical. I didn't know what else I would go into, and so that's what I stepped in to do as a full-time job, but always keep an eye out for another career or what else I could be more passionate about. And photography was kind of what I've realized I really love to do, and slowly transition. Work really hard on weekends, weekdays, and transition into full-time. So if there's a few, okay, we're starting with cool. Is it okay to start with the ballerina one or?
Usually when we want to move, the image is stuck.
It's hard? Okay. Well, this is a type of photography, like painting photography, so which is what I quite like as well, Blair. So do quite a lot of that.
Oh, that's a ballet.
This, I just want to start that first because it combines what I love, which is someone in the image. So it's kind of a portraiture, but also very editorial lifestyle. I'm from Hong Kong originally, but I moved to many different places, studied in the US and came back. But really like that contrast, old, new Hong Kong, or modern, and something that's more kind of traditional Hong Kong and Chinese elements. And I had an opportunity to work with this ballerina to come up with a series. So this is something that really, it's earlier on, but really speaks to kind of my aesthetics. We can go to the next one. And so a lot of it, I combine movement, again, people in the image. We can go to the next. And I do, a lot of obviously kind of more commercial work or with, portraiture with different families. But separately, I love, shooting outside, and I think with a lot of the photographers here, just doing street photography. The previous one's fine. Yes. A lot of street photography, or just kind of going out and get more inspiration. I think that's one great way, like go out with a camera. And I usually just limit to one lens at the time so that I can really just hone in on that specific, what I can do well with that lens on that day. And I repeat the same area all the time, but I always find something interesting. So this is in Causeway Bay, but I, again, like having some movement, capturing what people are doing. It's harder to see, but, so you have, within a photo, you have different people kind of doing different things from different, different social status, and I just find that interesting. And next image. Similarly, next image I shot in Yaumate, I think. Yep. So kind of more of the low light. I guess it's harder to see here, but I did a series as well, just like what Blair's saying. Every image you kind of shot hundreds of, or a lot of image before you kind of get to something that you really like. And this one has this image, but also one that has a bicycle that goes through. So that one I also quite enjoy because it combines that movement as well. So I really like kind of painting the image with light, whether it's the light there or something that I add to it. We can go to the next one. But also, getting inspiration from where I'm from. All these areas, I'm sure you guys kind of see that. And looking for details and things happening. Back to the light painting photography, this one I partnered with U.S. street mural artist, Kelsey Montague. And we did this in Malibu, in California, kind of combining her drawing style and my kind of light painting, what I wanted to get out of the scenes. It's hard to see here, but there's some rocks here on the beach. And so just kind of capturing all that with different light. And it's all in one shot. And then going to that one last image, which was, it came up first, but it's also light painting. I did that all in one shot. So with the light painting, I like to get it all as much as I can, even if it takes exposure a few minutes. Some of them I will draw the scene and have a few minutes of exposure. This is my husband. There's 10 of them here. I love him that much. About 10, I think. And so he moved position while I have it on long exposure. Flash on him, so kind of capturing all that within that one frame. And that's what I find quite fun with photography. You can do different things and capture something unique in one frame. Yeah.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you for sharing your photography journey. Next we have Derry. So Derry is a very dear friend of mine, and he's also curating the Pioneer Zone Digital Art Fair. So Derry, would you mind sharing a little bit of your journey?
Yeah, so I came to Hong Kong 7 years ago. Originally I came here traveling, and I came with just a camera. I didn't really know how to use it. When I came to Hong Kong, I fell in love with the place, and it got me inspired to learn how to use my camera more. I actually went into work in architecture for 2 years, and after working in architecture I realized that it really wasn't something I wanted to do. I didn't have the passion that I thought I would have for it. It was a lot more corporate and not as creative as I hoped it would be. So I practiced photography on the weekends. I started making a bit of money part-time doing that, and eventually I just quit my job and pursued photography full-time. So I've been doing full-time photography now for five years. I think when this loads, this can give a good example of my work from the past 7 years in one image.
The resolution is not very good.
I think it's still loading.
Yeah. It is a very big file, so because you combined 7 years of your work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Condense into one.
So in my 5 years, I did a lot of different types of photography just to stay afloat here, because obviously it's quite an expensive place to live. So I taught myself all different types. So I did like commercial photography in portraits, fashion products, architecture. But the street stuff and the Hong Kong imagery has always been something that I've loved to do, and is my true passion. Hopefully when this loads I can, there we go. You can, this is actually on display in the staircase, which you may have seen in the corner. So this for me came about when I was trying to pick images for this fair. I didn't really know which images to pick, so I just put a lot of my favorite images together into one composition. But the idea developed as I started to move the pieces around based on their shape and their their look and their feel, and I try to merge certain elements together. Come on, here we go. So yeah, so this collection of mine is called Collected Memories, because it's literally a collective of my memories of my time in Hong Kong. So yeah, this one itself is made up of probably around up to 80 or 90 images. Yeah, and you can see all different aspects of Hong Kong culture and life. Some of the stuff like the neon signs, which are in this image, don't actually exist anymore. They've been taken down. So for me, it's like a nice little memento of all of the things I've seen in my time here. And yeah, this is one of my series that I've got on display here at the fair. So if we go on to the next image. So this is one that I took with the drone. So I also do drone photography. This is taken from above elements in Kowloon. And so I was actually trying to capture one building through the one of these like dragon holes, I think they call them here, the feng shui holes. So I was trying to capture one building in particular, which is the Bank of China, through the left window. And when I saw that line up, I wondered if I could get another iconic building in the right hand side. And that's when I lined up the center and the peak gallery in the same image. And so people ask if it's Photoshop, but it's actually not. That was me experimenting with the drone, trying to fly it into the right place and get that shot. So this one's called Framing Icons, because I feel like it's framing two iconic Hong Kong buildings. And yeah, this is one of my NFTs on sale here at the show. Next one. So this one, I've done a couple of travel photography assignments for brands where they've sent me to different cities in Asia to capture the feel of each city and maybe capture images you can't find on Google Images, for example. I spend a lot of time on the streets just getting lost and looking for stuff I find interesting, and I love this building in Singapore. It's got these really colourful windows. Yeah, and I waited. I don't think you can see because Joyce is sat in front of it. But there's a man right in the middle of the door, and I can't tell you how long I was waiting for that guy to walk in front of that centerpiece without anything else in the shot. The hardest part was waiting for that to happen without any cars in front, because it's quite a busy road. So I don't know if this is the animated version, but part of my push with the NFT scene here with my photography is actually to animate my work. So as well as photography, I do video work. And so I've used my video techniques to sort of bring my photography to life. So you'll see that actually there's a lot of animated elements in the NFT version of that. Hey, where's it gone? Anyway, that was it in summary. So that one's in Singapore. That one's also available here at the fair. And this is a more recent version of my collective memories from different images from my 7 years of Hong Kong. When it loads, I'll try and explain some of them here. When it loads.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi is very choppy today. But I think this image is also a similar concept with the collective memories, right? Yeah.
Just different images, yeah. So the series I've got, obviously over the 5 or 6 years I've been here, I've collected so many photographs, and it's kind of nice to actually use them because they just sit on my hard drives all the time. So I've actually made use of what I can of different parts of different photos, and it's kind of nice to share that into one sort of creative collage. And I really try and think about the perspectives of certain elements in the frame, so you can see that certain elements actually draw the line of sight and the perspective in towards the middle of the image. So you can see the tram line and the swimming pool at the bottom, which is merged together. They sort of like converge into a center point. Same as some of these elements, like the neon sign as well. So yeah, it's hopefully it's good to look at, and you can sort of notice little different details and elements as the more you look at it. Yeah, cool. And,
Thank you.
Is there another one?
Yeah. Is there more?
Oh, that's it for me.
So thank you, Derry, for sharing your journey of your photography in Hong Kong. So I think a lot of our audience actually very aware of know your work quite well, because you represent Hong Kong culture very well, and we really appreciate a foreigner coming to Hong Kong. Sorry, you're not PR yet. Going to Hong Kong and start showing us the beauty of Hong Kong, and especially some of the iconic buildings and architecture that like you have photographed. But thank you. So Sean, as our next photographer that we would love to introduce to you, is Sean's pictures, like grab a lot of people's attention with so very cyberpunk imagery. But I would let you explain a little bit more, Sean.
Sure. Okay. So first of all, thanks for having me. I'm Sean. I'm from Australia, and I moved to Hong Kong around 7 years ago. And much like Derry, I was just here for travel initially, and I just fell in love with the city. And I knew it was somewhere that I wanted to be, and slowly 1 year turned into 2, turned into 7. So I remember when I first arrived in Hong Kong, I got off the flight late at night, and I was in a taxi from the airport driving through the city. And I was looking out the window, and I just saw all of the neon signs and the colors. And I just remember thinking it felt very much like something very surreal, something like a movie scene, and it really was my first impression of Hong Kong, and it's stuck with me ever since. So when I picked up photography about 5 years ago, it was natural for me to want to try to recapture that same feeling and that vibe. And you'll notice that all of my photos most of my photos are centered around the neon signs of Hong Kong. And it's something that I really, really love doing. And every time I go out to take these photos, I'm trying to capture a feeling, that same feeling that I had when I first arrived in Hong Kong, the city that I fell in love with. Again, it's probably hard for you guys to see, but over here, this one was taken in Yau Ma Tei near Temple Street. It was a little alley. Actually, I'd just been doing some work for the tourism board. I was capturing some photos of the Dai Pai Dongs around the area, the restaurants, and all of a sudden this rainstorm came in. And I think, well, that's going to be the end of my night shooting. But actually, what I love to shoot for myself is rainy nights in Hong Kong. I really think the neons stand out in the rain. They really transform a street and makes these new feels and colors that you wouldn't see otherwise. And I remember sitting in this alley just waiting for a right moment, and there was I'm really happy with this image and the way it came out. You can't really see it, but anyway, we'll go ahead. This one is actually of a pawn shop in around Ho Ma Tin. I've always really loved the pawn shop neon. I think it's that iconic Hong Kong shape. I think everyone's aware of them, and they're really, really beautiful, and I really like this image. I remember I've taken many photos of this spot. This one's probably my favorite. There's a man standing on the corner, and he's kind of, he must have had a long day, and he's just sitting there and just soaking in the environment. He's, yeah, I really like that one. And so the next one. This one is in Calvin City. This is where I live, actually, and it was after another long day of shooting. Whenever I go out shooting, I tend to walk until my legs can't walk anymore, and I remember coming home and I thought my night was done. And I wasn't actually too happy with the shots that I had captured that night. And so this was one of those times where I think, when I thought, you know, I'll give it one more chance, I'll take one more photo. And it just goes to show that sometimes, I remember this, that as motivation, like whenever I'm not doing well, is that, you know, just take one more step, and you never know what's around the next corner. And this shot came out, which I'm really, really happy with. And it's of a lady walking out of an alley. It really captures that kind of cyberpunk feel that I really go for, as Gillian introduced me as, which is which is a contrast between a colourful and vibrant city with a dark and gritty undertones, which is very much what I feel in Hong Kong sometimes. When you explore the back alleys, there's still life there. Although we live in a city that's so technologically advanced, there are still people who live the hard life here. It's very much a cyberpunk kind of feeling that, you know, as we get more and more technologically advanced, how many people are really benefiting from it, and perhaps it's not enough.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, there's one more.
So there's one more. So this one is of a neon sign, which I actually really, really love, which is no longer actually up anymore. It's of the Tohu Hotel. I hope that's how you pronounce it. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's an iconic building because there's everyone's aware of the Arnold Schwarzenegger sign just on the side. There's like a part of the hotel's gym or something. I think everyone's aware of it, and the way that the building curves is really, really beautiful. And this neon sign in particular used to cast a very fantastic gradient across the building, which is brilliant for a photographer to work with. And yeah, it's really sad that that one's gone, but I'm really happy with this image. I remember taking it on a night which had the very rare amount of fog, because you don't really get much fog here in Hong Kong, but every now and then around February we get a little bits of fog that comes in with the sea of clouds, as Blair likes to shoot. Yep. And I remember that night quite distinctly, and sadly that sign is no longer with us. Rest in peace.
Thank you, John. So I'm actually really glad that we talk a lot more about photography, because today's topic is values, ownership, and authority from photography to digital art. So first of all, I guess we want to establish what is photography for short. In digital art, coming from photography, is of course there is a lot of animations, a lot of programming, different application that you can use to work around photography. But let's dive into what is the value of photography in digital art. I think that's a lot of people want to understand. So maybe I will start, and then we can go down to talk a bit more about what the creative things about it. So I used to manage Blue Lotus Gallery and international galleries. So if you think about definition of fine art, the 5 fine arts are sculpture, paintings, poems, music, and I forgot the other one, printmaking maybe. But so photography has never actually been in the fine art categories. However, since the development, since the invention of cameras and photography since 1820s, photography is slowly taking the center stage, and until come to digital art, it's actually something that is native to it, because a digital camera, you export it, it's a digital file, right? So what are the values that's based on it, right? So, from limited edition to an open edition, there are some people always wondering about photography. So perhaps what we want to talk about from each of the speaker, we will share a little bit more about the way that you look at on printmaking or photography exporting into digital art. How do you see the trend on the development of photography within the art scene? So, would anyone wants to answer the question first?
So I think photography is developed into something that's easily accessible by everybody. I think everybody has a camera on their phone, and so I think it's quite competitive these days, more so than it was before. I think with the introduction of things like social media and Instagram, everybody likes to take nice photos and share them on their platforms. So it makes more competition, and I think it makes for artists to be more thoughtful in what they curate and what they create with their work. Obviously, now that we've got these digital platforms to view and see artwork, this is where this fair comes in. And we've got the digital art fair with NFTs. It's interesting to see how it's moving, and it's quite exciting to see that digital art, which are made with things like technology and computers, are actually taking a forefront or taking the stage a little bit, and showcasing new ways that you can create photographs or how you can adapt photographs to the digital marketplace. So it's very interesting, and I think it's still, this current scene is still very young, and it's quite exciting to see where it's going.
Yeah, absolutely. So like from the last 2 decades, I actually see quite a lot of photography-oriented art fair coming up. Actually, like for example, Photo Paris, Photo Shanghai. Like there's just to name 2, right? Like there are a few of them that only focus in photography. And I think in the development, right, like such a Blair, like you take a photograph and then add on other things, and then you change into digital art, right? So for you going through that process, and how because that's from the development side, like how did you bring that photograph into digital art? Like what is the step?
So I do agree. I agree with what Derry said, which is that everybody has access to a camera now. It's on your smartphone. It means that everyone is essentially a photographer. For me, the difference between a photographer and an artist is someone that is trying to use their creativity to try and make something new. And sometimes you succeed and sometimes you don't. But for me, digital art represents exposure to a new community where there are these new ideas flying around, and then seeing what can be done to push photography further. And that's what I think is important, whether that's through adding new elements or trying new things, trying new formats. I think that's all really, really important for digital art. Like I said, I think the emphasis is on trying to be creative as much as possible, because it's difficult. If everyone is doing it, there's more competition. There's more competition, then people are essentially repeating things, and giving people the opportunity to break away and experiment, I think, is what comes from that, where art can be made.
Yeah. Absolutely. Joyce, you have anything to add?
No, I agree with both, and I think it's exciting, obviously, definitely for photographers, because I think from the traditional, like even if you do artwork, art photography, it's a little harder to kind of approach different galleries, or it's harder to have that taken as artwork, or as you said, fine art, right? It's not really in the category of fine art. And that ties to collectors understanding whether you can have that as a unique item or one of a few editions and keep that way. So I think going online and having this NFT platform, and it really helps, cement that ownership. So whoever's collecting would know that, or feel good that it is something that's secure, can't be changed. And for artists to feel, be creative and put the best work out there, and know that there is collectors out there that's looking as well. So
yeah, thank you, Joyce. So even though thank you, Blair and Darren, Joyce, sharing of the view on the development of photography. As I mentioned, there are also several fairs that only focus on photography, even though historically photography is not defined as fine art. These days, photographies are being widely collected by collectors, and the price sometimes is actually like incredible. For example, JR from France, and then we have Wonka, the Ringsha in Hong Kong, Ho Fan in Hong Kong as well. These prices are going to hundreds of thousands of dollars, obviously Hong Kong dollars, for each photograph. Like vintage photograph, or even limited edition Michael Wolf would go for $100,000 per piece in a 100 by 180 size, right? So that comes to values of it, right? Like, how do you see? What do you guys think is the value of photography? I guess to digital art as well, right? Like from collecting point of view, the value of photography, and why is it important? I guess why is it important for art collectors to purchase or to collect a piece of photography?
Yeah, so personally, I think that a collector's only going to collect something that speaks to them, and I think that photography, we can all say that photography absolutely has a voice. And I think every piece of art can be defined by the message behind it, or not necessarily a message, but the artist's own voice and their own ideas, and that's what makes true art true. And it doesn't matter what the medium is, whether it's photography, painting, digital art, whatever it is. An artist has a vision that they are trying to portray authentically, and that's where all the creativity and everything comes in. And it's true that everyone is a photographer in a sense, because we all take photos. Like everyone has taken one, so we're all photographers. But what I think changes it into fine art is that a photographer with a vision and that they can portray, and a message, and just something that they find personally beautiful, and something that comes from within themselves, I guess.
I definitely agree with that. I actually worked with Michael Wolf for a while, who passed a couple of years back, and he taught me one thing that I used to spend lunch. He used to cook lunch for us in Blue Lotus Gallery every afternoon, and he would explain to me a good photographer is the one that will able to point you to an image that you would not be able to see by yourself. So I guess that's what really defines a good artist, not just a photographer. It defines a good artist and what make them collectible.
I think just to add to that as well, I think that when you look at something like a painting, everyone has an idea that something like that would take time, but because the bar for photography is so low, people don't necessarily consider the amount of work that goes into a photograph, and why the photographer considers it to be of a certain value. So, I know that everyone here has got years of work and nights out on the street and waiting in a specific place to try and get a specific shot, and then hours of editing as well.
Absolutely,
and all of the great photographers have tried to communicate a message through their hard work, and that's what I think they value when they display their photographs.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm actually really glad to see there are so many great photographers at Derry actually brought in digital art there, and Sean as well, and you're very well regarded in the NFT art scene. And I guess the next question that I'm going to ask is what a lot of people on the chat is asking about is what does it mean for photographers to create NFTs? I guess I feel you guys can share some more.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I can start.
Yeah.
So I guess as any artist, the NFT scene is just a new platform to display and share your work. It's not necessarily a replacement. I don't think it's going to replace traditional means of sharing photography or artwork, but I think it's just another great way of taking advantage of modern day technology and also a new way to display it and share everything. So yeah, I think it's not here to change, well, not here to replace anything, but it's definitely here to bring a new element to it.
Yeah. Thank you, Derry. How about Joyce? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the least experienced NFT artist here on the panel. I just minted my first one 10 days ago. Thanks. No, it was a great experience. I mean, it's kind of the same thing we were talking about, like the development of photography and the natural progression of where, you know, it could go, and where you can kind of have a platform to show your artwork, but also, of course, to hopefully, you know, sell the artwork. And I've been kind of looking on the sidelines since, you know, it was big news in February and March, but kind of just didn't do anything, and until now, so that's great. Kind of gave me a kick in the butt to just do one, to experience it. And I think it's, I mean, I get a lot of questions too. It's just like, oh, is it difficult? I mean, it's actually, the process itself is not. So I think it's definitely something, if you're interested, just look at the platforms. You just have to have kind of that wallet, and you connect the wallet, well, exchange on the wallet, and you connect it to the platform and get started. I think the harder part for me was actually writing the description. I think it took a little longer for me to like, well, what should I, you know, what did this photo mean to me? I mean, it did mean a lot. It's just like getting it, you know, on paper. What exactly, and I am a photographer first, so writing a cover is pretty hard for me in that sense. So, but I think it's a great platform. I'd love to do that more and have that way to be able to share my work.
Thank you, Joyce. What about you, Sean? You have done NFT for a while now. Maybe you can share a little bit more about.
Yeah, sure. So I can only really speak from my own experience, but I first started hearing about NFTs, I guess, the beginning of this year, around January. You know, I think everyone started to hear little rumblings, maybe on Instagram stories, or they heard from certain artists that they liked that they were, you know, thinking about this NFT thing. And I was very much on the fence at first when I heard it myself, and I was like, you know, this sounds great, but it almost sounds too good to be true. Like, is this thing really real? Can I sell a digital copy of my photo? Like, is someone really going to value that? But then when you start to learn more about it, you learn about how NFTs work on the blockchain, how it's all very visible and verifiable. It's the same as owning a real one-of-one art piece. And so I ventured into it, and I can only say that it gave me as Derry mentioned, it gave me a new platform, a new way to push my artwork out there, and it really also made me take my own work more seriously, because you're really standing out in a leg when you list your work for sale as a one-of-one. You're pushing yourself out there and saying, hey, this is my work and I value it. And in some way that makes me stand a little bit taller, that, you know, I believed in myself to be able to do this. And to where we're at now, I mean, look where we're at. This whole fair has just been incredible. I mean, you look around and I've met so many different artists and different people from walks of life, and it really makes it all worth it. Like, it's been, a great experience overall.
Thank you, Sean. What about you, Blair?
So I'm a relative newbie, less new than Joyce, but definitely newer than Sean. So I'm kind of coming to grips with it as well and understanding what it means. But like I said, it's just been a fantastic opportunity to meet people, to understand the way that the technology is developing and the future opportunities presented, and also to push the bounds of creativity as well. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So I guess the next question that I would have is also related to NFT. Is that how NFT makes photography more unique, right? Does it make it work more? I guess the NFT helps it work to be, you know, like different from the mass market.
So I think different people have different ideas about this, but me personally, I don't think it makes my work more unique. My work is my work, and that's what it is. What it does do, it does make it unique in the sense of its availability. You know, you put your work out there as a 1 of 1, a 1 of 3, a 1 of 10. That you're saying that there's only ever going to be 10 copies of this. Now, does it change the actual work itself? Not really, but it does change the way that I think about my work, and it makes me maybe put a little bit more attention to my curation and the way that I create it to make sure that it is worthy of being a limited edition. So in that sense, I think it does change the way I think about my work, but not necessarily it doesn't change what my work is.
Got it. Derry?
No, I agree. That's it. That's it in summary, really. Yeah.
Okay.
That's true.
So I guess here I want to, I'm not going to even look at this right now because I want to talk a little bit more about authority here, because we'll actually talk about values, ownership. Ownership is like, you know, when you purchase an NFT, you own the work. Authority. So I think quite a few you actually work before digital art fair. You do work with galleries. You do work with, you know, like selling your prints outside of fair. How was the experience of that? And would you mind share a little bit more, like what's the difference between selling NFT than a traditional artwork?
Sure, I'll go. Yeah. So personally, yeah, I was selling my work as prints and everything before through various galleries, and which was great. And it's always a great feeling when someone buys your work and shows it on their wall, and that you can feel proud as an artist when that happens, because someone appreciates enough to hang on their wall in their office to show other people. But there's also a different level of connection in the traditional gallery sense, in that something that I think that NFTs really bring to the table is a connection between the collector and the artist, more than just that good feeling of someone appreciating your work. There's actually a line of communication that is potentially open to you, or a bridge that you guys can meet in the middle of, I think is a good way to think of it. Because everything is so transparent, and if a collector does buy an NFT, you can see exactly who has bought it. You can see exactly who's selling it. And just in general, as an artist, I know that when someone has bought my work in the past, I've reached out to them immediately just out of thankfulness, and then you start to talk with them, and you realize that you're connecting with people from different walks of life that you never would have before. And I think that's just one exciting thing about it, one difference.
I think also the journey from purchasing a print is quite different to NFTs. So for example, when someone goes to an art gallery or they purchase a print in a store, then the transaction has essentially stopped there. Like you presume that the person is then going to take the print and hang it up in their house, hopefully not in their bathroom, but somewhere nice that they can look at it every day. But that's essentially the end of the transaction. But with an NFT, I think it's a buy-in terms of investing in the photographer and your belief in the photographer's work as well. So that after the NFT transaction has been completed and you own the NFT, there is the option for it to go further. I mean, maybe a few years down the line, the person will pass it on. Maybe they want to keep it. There's different possibilities. It doesn't just mean that the print transaction has stopped. So I think that's really exciting as well. It's so digital and easily transferable, and as Sean said, trackable as well. So it's very, very different.
I know Derry also got quite a few messages from your buyers immediately after they purchased your work and your NFT. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's just nice to be able to catch up with people on the internet. It's quite nice to meet the person who's bought the work. Like Sean said, it's just great to meet people from different walks of life, and just say thanks for appreciating the hard work that we put into the images. But one of the best things about the fair is that you can actually meet people before and after the sale. And that's really, it adds like a really human element to the digital NFT space, because that might be one critique of the digital NFT space, is that it doesn't have the personal touch of going to an art gallery and meeting the artists and stuff like that. So having something like this event is great because it merges both of those two worlds together, and you can still purchase digital art but have all the positive aspects of a physical experience. So yeah, that's what I like about it.
Thank you. So I think we have we're going to start in our Q&A session, and we actually have a lot of questions online, but I'll maybe start with who and here. Anyone have a question?
Actually,
Yes, please. Yes.
Sorry, I'm going to be a complete donut when it comes to NFTs. Sorry, Derry. So on your picture, for example, with the 2 dragon holes.
Yeah.
So on that, so you've got the physical format.
Yeah.
And then you've got the NFT format.
Yeah.
Let's say hypothetically you're selling that as a one-off edition. So if I buy the NFT off you, number one, can I view that almost as buying the equivalent of the negative from you if this was just in standard photography?
Yeah.
And then number two, then how does it work in terms of whoever owns that NFT? Could they, so obviously you have the set picture, but then you have the actual kind of more online picture with the lights flashing.
Yeah.
Could that person then just go and print as many if they wanted as of that set picture, should they want to, and then just go and sell it on, should they want to also?
Yeah. So I think when you buy the NFT, you're buying a token version of the artwork. You don't necessarily buy the digital license for that work. So that person, the artist, still has the rights to go publish it or sell it to a website or for whatever reason. But the NFT, it belongs to you as soon as you purchase that. And so what we're trying to do with the NFTs here is we have the digital version, which is sometimes animated, but we also provide a physical print with that as a gift. So that adds a bit of physical value to the digital NFT, because some people still question whether you should pay this much money to have something which is only displayed on a screen. So by us giving a physical print with that, we're trying to push it into, we're trying to push the value up a little bit. But what you're saying about printing it out, you can. There's nothing to stop you printing it out, but you're not really supposed to be selling it on. I mean, you have the file. You can print it for yourself. You can put it where you want. But like, if you were to sell it on, then I'll come find you.
Just to chime in on that, like, it is exactly right. In general, a lot of artists who sell NFTs, you know, it's kind of up to between the collector and the artist themselves. But in general, you're free to use them for your own personal use, however you wish. But when you get into commercial aspects, it's a different kind of license. Sometimes an NFT does come with that commercial license, and that might be a selling point of a specific NFT. But it's kind of up between the buyer and the seller to negotiate those terms.
Thank you. So further develop a little bit further from your question. From our online community here, there's a question regarding to IP as well. So Iggy asking, copyright is an issue in photography, and anyone can take an image and mint it. So that's actually especially for Blair. So he said, I can do it for Blair's work. And there's not many precedent legal case to avoid that. I guess this is what would you do when, and I guess, have you encountered any issue with copyright and people copying your work and reminting it again?
So I think on social media it happens all the time, and I think that the measures in place on social media at the moment are quite insufficient with dealing with that. However, with these NFT platforms like Refinable, like Foundation, OpenSea, if you find that someone has stolen your work and copied it, then you can report it and show that it's been copied, and they will block the person, block their wallet, block the account, because obviously there is that huge emphasis on being unique, and if someone has just lifted your art without doing the work behind it, then they shouldn't be allowed to sell on the platform. So there are measures in place. I'm the same as Derry, which is if someone prints out my work and posts it around, I will try and hunt them down as well. Because that's obviously harder to do online. But the NFT platforms themselves have got measures in place to stop that thing from happening.
Yeah, Derry, what about your experience of people copying work and claim that that's their creation, but then in fact it's not?
It's hard to keep track of, I guess, especially in the physical world, but it's more trackable now with NFTs.
Yeah,
every transaction is on the blockchain. Everything is transparent. Everything is there for you to see, so you can trace it back to where it's come from. And like Blair said, you can just choose to report it and block it, and I think that's just as much as you can do. I don't think you can personally police it too much.
So I guess as a curator, it's difficult to say that, I think now with blockchain, you can say this date I minted this, it's my work, and then if someone copy that and say that that's there, it's obviously not. But in the real world, you still have a lot of problem there. People just take your image, they sell it in Mongkok, reprint it and sell it in Mongkok, go on Taobao and resell it. I guess it's the same in the real world and in the NFT world. Got it. Okay, so next question, I guess, is gonna be for I think it's for Sean. Let's say here. How would you describe the dynamic between NFT and non-NFT artists and communities?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I think, speaking from an artist standpoint, there is no difference really. I mean, apart from the fact that you're selling NFTs, and I mean, that's the only difference. An artist still sees another artist as an artist, and we're all part of the same community, I guess, and we all, you know, appreciate each other for those exact reasons that, you know, we all just love to create things. And I mean, as Derry mentioned earlier in the talk, you know, the NFT is just a new platform. It doesn't change the way an artist should do their work, or maybe it does give them extra motivations to do a specific thing, but it shouldn't change the person that they are. And I think that pretty much sums it up. That there is no real distinction other than one is selling NFTs and one is not. And, I mean, there's no real divide there. I mean, we're all still artists, and I have many artist friends who don't sell NFTs for, you know, their own reason. And I mean, it's a non-issue. Yeah.
Great. What about you, Joyce? What do you think of people trying to define what's NFT artist and what NFT artist? Because you originally is traditional photographer, and now you're just kind of like getting into the space.
Right. No, I agree with what Sean mentioned, that I don't think inherently there's any difference between the two sets of artists, but it is like a platform where you can, or a platform you choose to whether you get on it to sell and display your work, just like you choose a different gallery or not have a gallery and sell it on yourself, right? Because if you go to art fairs, traditional art fairs, some of them you could still kind of get your own booth, but of course it's harder to just be on your own versus being attached to a gallery. So I think it's just different ways of doing that, and I think there's still a lot of ways where you have to market yourself using the social media platform, and you guys were talking about communities before. So I think it still have a lot of ways that you still have to market yourself to get to it. Yeah.
Thank you, Joyce. I guess we come down to our last question, and I think it's more technical now. Alexa is asking, what program do you use to collage and animate your photographs? I think that's for Derry.
Okay. Personally, for my animation stuff, I use Final Cut Pro, which is basic video editing software. For the collage stuff, it's Photoshop. So I'm really just cutting out bits and trying to compose it into a new image on Photoshop. So yeah, but everyone's different. Everyone uses different stuff. People use After Effects, Premiere Pro for video stuff. People go into rendering software as well. Really depends on what you're doing and what you've learned your craft on, basically.
What about you, Sean?
For me personally, my stuff is I only have one animated image that's up here, and I'm a terrible animator. So I actually brought someone else in to help me. It's my friend Alex Knight, who lives in Japan. He's another photographer, but also an animator. And he was more than happy to help me out, as he's actually another digital NFT artist as well. And so we collaborated on that, and I think he did use Adobe After Effects to do that. In terms of my own work, it's all just done in Lightroom and Photoshop, depending on what I need to do. Mainly in Lightroom, as my real technique is about adjusting my colors to achieve my look and feel. And all of that can be done in Lightroom, so. Yeah.
And Blair, you get to answer that, because there are a lot of people curious about how you did that.
Sure. So I use Photoshop, Lightroom, Final Cut as well. But for the Jardine House piece, which was the most difficult, I sat down in front of my computer and I got ready to program Python. But I don't know Python. So I picked up my phone and I called a friend who knows Python, who's one of the photographers in Hong Kong as well. He's very, very proficient at it. And he took the Python coding and the Jardine House grid and basically made it the full playable game. So I think, as Sean said, working with people to get the result that you want in a lot of cases is a way to do it.
Collaboration.
Yeah, I think that's another point to bring up, is that I've been collaborating more with other artists than I ever have before since I joined the NFT space. It's just a nice kind of thing to realize that, it's a big community here amongst the NFT artists and other artists, and it's another nice way to bring in people who are not NFT artists into the NFT scene by simply collaborating with someone who may have a skill set that you don't have, who may be able to help you achieve whatever vision that you have for your work.
Joyce, do you collaborate with a lot of other artists as well?
Sometimes, well, like with the light painting photography I showed on one of the example, so I collaborate with, so that one's not another photographer, but a mural artist, just to kind of come up with that idea of doing the light painting and have, because I can't really draw, so I figured that's a nice way to have her draw the image, and then I will, capture the overall, image, photo itself. So that's the kind of collaboration. I, work with my husband a lot. So we obviously collaborate a lot of things, but yeah, I mean, in terms of photos, we help each other. In a film, he does film, feature films, so I work with him on that. So yeah, for sure.
Thank you. I think this is the very, very last question. There's a few questions also in the Q&A. So for the last one, it's also from Alexa. It's a follow-up, since you're collaborating, how do you share funds when the NFTs are sold? It's more, I guess, because collaboration. I think that's actually a great part about NFT, because it's executable, right?
Yeah. So me personally, I just split it 50-50. If someone's going to pour their hard work into my hard work, it's only fair that it's 50-50. But it's really just up to the two artists to determine themselves, like how much is one person's contribution worth. And personally, I think it should always just be 50-50. I mean, it's someone else's, not just their time and effort on the piece, but it's their whole years and years of work beforehand to develop that skill set that they're bringing to the table. Just like, for example, mine is photography and Alex's was animation. Now he's done years and years and years of animation to get to the point where he can achieve what I can't achieve. Whereas I've done years and years and years of photography to meet my end, and I think it's only fair to be 50-50.
And anyone else? Anything?
Just to add to that, I think it's quite easy to then just send someone some money on crypto wallets. It's like a simple bank transfer. So the actual
smart contract.
It's super simple process. So sending it to your friend after you finish the sale or the bid, like that's quite easy to do.
Yeah, I think it's also, I think also in the cryptocurrency world is something called smart contracts. So a lot of them actually can be executed when the NFT is sold like immediately. So that's one of the beauty of NFT world. I guess we're coming to the end of our oh, you have a question?
I do. So I just heard about this. Oh, sorry. I've just heard about NFTs really recently. I'm not up on things. And I heard about it through a friend, and he explained something to me which I thought was extraordinary. And listening to you now and understanding a bit more about how, say, legitimate art is now part of the NFT world. So I'll just tell you what he did, and then I want to know your thoughts on it and how this affects the NFT world and the art world. So he's not an artist. He actually was working in crypto. And then he came to know about NFTs and saw it as a money-making opportunity. So he did some market research on what kind of images might sell or become collectible. And then he hired an artist to do the pictures, but he described what elements he wanted in it. He then decided how many limited editions or whatever, and then decided on a price, built a website and sold it. And he managed to make, to me, like for someone who's not an artist, he made $20,000 in 2 days selling it. He just sold out. But his NFTs were really cheap. They were like, I don't know, $5, $10. And I was just mouth open, kind of like, this is printing money. And how does this happen? And how does this work? And the one thing I could associate it with was maybe like collecting baseball cards, like kids used to in the olden days collect cards. So I've come here today actually to just try and understand a little bit more about what he told me. And you clearly come from a completely different angle on this. And I wondered what your feelings are about someone like him and how you both inhabit the same space and how that can coexist.
Sure. So I think NFT is not simply just about art. It's a very broad kind of platform. I mean, we're talking from one standpoint, and that is as artists, and we do what we do as artists, right? But what you're talking about is your analogy is very apt. I think that like baseball card collection. Yeah. It's a little bit like that, and those types of things are also very community driven. So a good example of this that I think everyone has heard of is the whole Bored Ape thing.
Yeah.
So that what that did was very similar. There's an image of an ape outfitted differently with different features and maybe different moods and feels. And the idea behind it was that collectors would, buy this Bored Ape and they would become part of this club. So it opened a whole network of people who can say, I'm part of the Bored Ape Club and we're all connected and can communicate with each other. And I suppose there was a little bit of exclusivity that came along with that. And I think anyone who's aware of it has seen like what has become of that and how successful it's been for not only collectors but the creators of that whole project. In many different aspects, both in terms of money, yes, people made a lot of money doing that, but they also formed connections with people that they would never have before. And yeah, it is an interesting way to utilize NFTs, and definitely that's something that does happen, and I have no ill will or anything about it. I think it's great, and people will, put their money where they think it's valued, and there's definitely some value there.
Yeah, I would like to add a little bit of that as well. In digital art fair, obviously we talk about art, right? So we talk about digital art and selling digital art as using NFT as a way to transact the money. But there are also a lot of other NFT that is tradable. For example, what you're mentioning right now, I'm not sure it's art or it's collectibles. So collectibles is something completely different. Like it's like baseball card is collectibles, right? And there are also me is collectible. There are other utilization of NFT. So it's commercial way to use it. But I guess I think what you're mentioning is more related to collectibles and how many people want to collect it and form a cup, just like what Sean mentioned. I guess anything else to add before we end the session? Thank you so much for joining us today, and again, thank you for coming and listening to this last seminar. And okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.